So when it comes to our confidence, what are we doing about it? Because there are so many things in our lives that we want to be doing more of, and for some reason we just can't get ourselves to do it. Like, we know exactly what the steps are, but we just hold ourselves back. And we it's interesting because like we go out there and we look to see what other information we could find. We try to speak to different people, but then when it comes down to it, we just don't take the action. We just don't do the thing. And the question is why? Why not? Why can't we just do what it is we want to be doing? How can we step into that role? And how we just build our confidence in a way that we can start to do the things that we want. It's not like stuff that we don't want to be doing. It's like the stuff we want to be doing anyway. So might as well just get it done. But it's a lot easier said than done. So today we're going to be talking about that. And the reason why I'm speaking about this is number one is I recently went through something that was challenging for me. And it was like something so silly, but like for me, it was like this big thing that was in my head. And number two, I had a client who reached out to me recently also who was going through something. And they reached out. We had a whole like close to like an hour conversation about this one specific topic, and this person like knows what it is they need to be doing, and they literally just can't get themselves to do it. So we're just going to break this stuff down and really just flesh it out in terms of what it is we could start to do to build ourselves up to get ourselves in the position to do and take the action that we want. And one of the main things about confidence, I believe, in the first place, is that we have to recognize that confidence can be built. It's a skill that can be learned in specific areas, though. I think that's one of the things that people get confused about is like our self-esteem can be an overall self-esteem with everything that's going on in our lives. But when it comes to our confidence is the thing in a specific area. So I can be very, very confident when I get on the basketball court, but then when I get on in the hockey rink, I can be terrible, which is the case. So what we have to realize is just because you are confident in one area doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be confident in another area. I did have a student one time, which I thought was fascinating, knew that he was very good at baseball. And when he came onto the basketball court, he just acted as if he was playing baseball. And he was so extremely confident that he wasn't necessarily scoring as much as other kids, but he was outplaying them like crazy. And it was just really, really cool to watch. So I do believe we can start to borrow confidence from different areas. But just because we are confident in one area does not necessarily mean it's going to translate into other areas. But what that does mean also is that we have to work in specific areas. So this person has this client that I was speaking to has a decision that they have to be making. They're trying to get their business in a certain trajectory, and they're stuck. They just don't know which direction to go in. And a lot of times it's so easy to talk ourselves out of it. And this is something that I recently started doing, or let's say recently, something I recently just got past. So I was doing it for like months already in terms of like which direction I want to take my business into. And I recently made a decision that I'm going to go this direction. And guess what? I don't know if this direction is going to work out, but I will see. And if it doesn't, then I'm going to continue to pivot. But what I did also notice is that I was so stuck because I kept analyzing like steps 5, 6, and 7. And I didn't just slow down and ask myself, like, what's the next thing I need to do? Like, what's that next step? And when it came to this client that I was speaking to, we got to the part of the conversation where we're like, okay, so these are our options. And now which one like makes the most sense? And we figured that out. And then we like just like broke it down even more like, okay, like what's the next step? And we figured out the next step. And yet I was like, okay, so like now we know what to do. And she was like, yeah, but I can't do it. And I was like, come on, like this is literally it. Like this is the thing that we need to be doing right now in order to get to that next step. And for some reason, she's not able to get herself to do it. And the reason why I think that happens a lot of times is we talk ourselves out of it. Meaning when something happens, and I think this happens with kids also, it just happens on a smaller scale. When you ask a kid, like, I don't know, it's like, I don't know, my son, like, we're having chicken for dinner. And he's like, no. And like, he didn't even hear the words we said. He just had to disagree. So he said the words no. And then like, I'm like, no, we're having chicken for dinner. And then becomes like a thing. Like he has to say no now. And then it starts to become this massive, massive deal, which is like, it's really not such a big deal. But because in his head, he said no, and he has to continue to say no and build it up, it becomes like this whole thing that like we have to have like a massive like argument about whether he's having chicken or not for dinner. And I think for all of us, there are certain things we need to be doing. And for some reason, when we delay that action that we take, it becomes a little heavier to us, and then heavier and heavier and heavier. So that decision that should have taken a day ends up taking 3 days, which ends up taking a week, which ends up taking 2 weeks and a month and 3 months and then 5 months, 6 months. And then you're like, this decision is a pretty big decision. I've been thinking about decisions for 6 months. And the truth is like, you probably could have made that decision like 6 months ago, and for some reason, like, you're not taking the action to do it. And I think so many of us think that there's going to be this clear direction that we're going to need. Like, there's going to be this thing that's going to just open up our eyes and like, that's what I need to be doing. That's what needs to happen. But imagine if it was the other way around, where we have to make the choice that we decide the thing that's going to be the shining star. And I think that's what happens a lot of times. And I think there are people who get these like bolts of clarity and whatnot. I've had that actually one time, which was actually really, really cool. But so I wouldn't rely on that. Like, that's not something that I would just like hope and pray for. And I think what happens is that we delay the decisions because we're scared. I speak about this all the time in terms of like the fears that we have with the specific decisions. But when it comes to certain things that we want to be doing, all we have to realize is that we have to start doing the thing in order to get good at it. So bringing you back to confidence, when there is something that we want to become more confident in. So let's say there's, I don't know, public speaking is always the big one. So you have to get yourself in the position where you are starting to public speak. There are so many things. I've like literally taken courses on this, where I'm trying to learn better ways to engage the audience, to be able to tell stories in order to just get myself out there, get my message out there so much clearer. And what I realize is that there's so many different things I need to be working on, and I can't work on all of them at once. And I have to try to figure out and pick and choose, hey, this is what I'm going to work on tonight. This is the thing, or the next 5 times I'm going to speak, this is what I'm going to do. And to be very transparent, this is like one of the reasons why I do lives all the time. You see, these lives give me practice to speak and to flesh out my ideas and to tell stories and to just share ideas and to just riff, to be able to talk. Like, these are things that I was not able to do a couple of years ago. And it's so powerful because I realized, hey, I could just talk to the ether, whoever's listening there. And whenever they're listening, because like the podcast also, it's like you can be taking that whenever it is that you want. But for me, I'm practicing every single day. So I'm getting the reps in. And when I get in front of an audience, I already have what it is I want to be saying. I already know what it is I'm going to be talking about. So we have to realize, when it comes to confidence, we have to take that action. And one of the things I love sharing with people is not about being confident. It's about being courageous. And what we have to realize is that it's supposed to be scary. It's supposed to be unknown. It's that you're supposed to have that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to do it. But then it's the courage of taking the action, of stepping into the moment, of doing it in spite of the fear. That is the most powerful thing somebody can do, because that's where the growth happens. It's, I don't want to do this thing. I took the leap forward. I did the thing. Results we'll talk about. Ideally, we want to have great results, but maybe that's not the case. But I took the action. Now, once I'm an action taker, now I could get myself to take more action, and then more action, and more action. And literally right before this call, I was jumping onto, I was looking into like just the back end of my marketing stuff. And I realized I have this new goal of mine that I want to start running new ads every week, like one new ad set every week. And I'm waiting right now. It's only whenever you listen to it, this is a Monday. So I'm literally waiting literally a day or two to get feedback from somebody in order to say, hey, which ad should I be promoting or not promoting? And I thought to myself, I'm like, I might not know till Wednesday or Tuesday night, whatever it might be. And then I could be missing these first 2 days of the week of something that I really want to be doing. And I realized to myself, I will get the feedback from this person. The question is, when is it? So I'm now relying on that person. But for me, by me taking the action and spending the extra day or two with my ads and publishing them, well, guess what? That gives me more confidence the next time to not have to rely on somebody else. Because right now, rightfully so, I'm learning them and I'm just getting started in them. I have this handicap that I'm waiting for somebody else to tell me if what I'm doing is right or not. And it's like, why don't you just try it yourself? And even if like they mess up, like, and nobody signs up for your stuff, like, okay, but like you took that action by yourself. And I felt like I was like riding the bicycle without the training wheels for the first time. And I might fall, and I'm expecting I'm going to fall, but that's something that for me is so powerful. And we have to ask all ourselves, like, what are those things that we need to be doing? What is it that I need to be doing in my life that I don't have to rely on other people? Because for me, in the ideal sense, I want to know what I'm doing. And I don't know what I'm doing until I start to do it myself. If I'm always just holding a crutch, then I don't know if I could walk or not. I need to let go a little bit. And that was something that was extremely powerful. And there was something else that happened yesterday, well, it feels like it was forever ago. Something happened yesterday where I needed to go meet somebody, and like very uncomfortable. Somebody asked me or asked my wife, like, "Oh, could your husband go meet this person?" I was like, "I don't want to meet this person. Like, this is just these interactions are just uncomfortable, and I just like not something that I wanted to do." And I knew the longer that I would think about it, the more that I wouldn't want to do it. And I knew I had the answer to this person's question for whatever reason, and I realized I just don't want to do it. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm giving myself 10 minutes and then I'm going. Because if I wait it 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, I'm going to not do it. And I'm just going to freak myself even more out, even more. And I ended up going to this guy. I ended up helping him after like 5 minutes and I ended up leaving. And it felt like amazing afterwards. I'm like, I knew I was going to be able to help them. Like the guy didn't like yell at me. The guy wasn't like upset at me and whatnot. And it was so powerful to me after the fact to say, hey, how many things am I scared of doing? How many things do I want to do? How many times do I want to take the action and I talk myself out of it? And what we have to realize is that it's the action that's going to breed more action, which is going to then build your confidence to do it the next time. Because I guarantee you, if somebody would have asked me 5 minutes after that encounter, hey, do you want to meet this person? I would have been like, yeah, sure. Not a problem, because I just had a great experience. So the same thing happens over and over and over again. And we need to try to ask ourselves, like, what are those things that are going to be happening? How that we're supposed to build that confidence? How can we take that courage that we're supposed to be taking and putting it into the position where we can start to put ourselves in the position to be able to just do more and more and more? And if we could start to just figure that out, then we don't talk ourselves out of it. We're not thinking about all the things that can go wrong or all the things that, if I do it this way or if I do it that way. It's like, no, we're just moving. We're just taking action. And the difference between the successful people and the non-successful people, which is something that I'm constantly seeing. I hear it all the time. You hear this on podcasts and whatnot. But now that like you see up close successful people, it's like they just take action so much quicker because the reps are getting so much quicker. So even if they're getting the same results, but they're getting it more time, so they're getting it even better. It's like the difference between somebody practicing piano for 20 minutes every day or like once a week for an hour. Like the person who practices 20 minutes every day is going to have so much more skill, even though they're technically doing it for a shorter time, possibly, whatever the math is, you know what I mean? So like we have to try to figure that for ourselves. Like, what is it that we want to be doing? How is it that we're putting ourselves in a position to do those things that we want? And how are we getting ourselves to put ourselves out there? And I think the first thing we have to understand is we're not supposed to feel comfortable. And that's okay. Like very big comma right there. Comma, like that's okay. So what we have to try to figure out is like, what is the ideal situation? What would have happened? Because for so many of us, and I know this happened to me, it's like if I would have just decided months ago in terms of this business decision that I was trying to make, like I would have definitely been further along right now. And because I'm not, I'm more frustrated, I'm annoyed, and all these different things. And I'm just months back in terms of like where it is I should be. And if this thing doesn't end up working, then guess what? Like at least then I'll know I'll be able to pivot. I would have been able to pivot earlier and I didn't waste all that time. So I think wherever it is that we are trying to figure out where we want to become more confident, ask ourselves, what is the ideal? What is it we want to be doing? Where is it we could be more courageous in the moment? And in spite of that fear, look to take the action, because if we could start to take that action, I'm telling you, we'll be able to move forward. And the big thing about the action, this is a key right here. The big thing about the action is that it doesn't need to be massive action. It could be small action. I tell the story about one of my clients, Mark, who ended up, long story short, he's partners in a company that does $500 million in sales. He ended up losing his confidence because somebody made fun of him at a conference that his company was running. So he was like so embarrassed in front of everybody. He called me after like 6 months, I believe of him not doing like making any sales like after the conference. And he was just like done. He was like so upset. And I worked with him, like, what can we start to do? And literally the first thing we did was 3 times a day, he just has to dial somebody's phone number, like the numbers into his phone. He doesn't have to press send. He just has to put them in his phone number. Like that was the first thing, because he couldn't even get himself to do that. And on the one hand, he's like making fun of himself. It's like, this is ridiculous. I have a $500 million company and I can't get myself to make a phone call. Like this is, I'm literally in sales. Like, why can't I do this? But for him, that's where he was. So ask yourself, like, what are those small steps that you need to be doing in order to break it down, just to take that one thing that could lead to the next thing, to lead to the next thing, into the next, and then the next. And all of a sudden, I'm telling you, things are going to be tremendously, tremendously different for you. You're going to start to be able to see what it is you can start to accomplish and really start to move forward. And the end of that story is that 3 months after we started working together, this guy had the highest sales. He was the highest sales rep in his state in that industry, not even like his county or township, literally in his state. The guy was like went on fire and just started making calls and started closing deals again. We should have made a deal like a commission or something for that, because that would have been flipping awesome. But whatever. I'm happy that he was able to get it done and get himself back into it. So what are those things that are holding you back? How is that you can get yourself back into the game, become more confident, and by becoming confident, by taking the action, by being more courageous, embracing the uncertainty, embracing the fear, and saying, hey, you know what? This is me growing right now. That's the shift we have to have. That's the mindset we have to have. It's me growing right now, even though it's uncomfortable. It's always uncomfortable, but that's what we're going to be able to do. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and we'll see everybody on the next one.